This session is sponsored and programmed by Comcast Business.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shibani Joshi. Today, I'm joined by Comcast EVP and Chief Product and Information Security Officer, Noopur Davis, as well as Comcast Business's SVP and GM of Enterprise Solutions, Glenn Katz. Today, we're taking a look at cybersecurity and the shift in strategy most corporations have to consider as more people work remotely and the perimeter of the protected workplace infrastructure has basically disappeared. Noopur, I want to kick things off with you. Welcome for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today. Describe what's shifted in terms of corporate infrastructure and how enterprises ensure network security as a result of the pandemic and the shift to more distributed workforces.
That's a great question. This happened about a year or so ago. It was March. And within 2 weeks, we had almost 200,000 of our workforce suddenly had to work from home. And home was, anywhere in the country and outside the country. And so suddenly, where we had most of our people working from a trusted network inside a trusted location, suddenly now they were working from home and over untrusted networks. So that perimeter of protection, which was our network, kind of disappeared. And that was a huge shift and really, really made us redo our thinking about how do we protect our people, our information, and our resources in that new normal.
Glenn, turning to you now, describe the landscape as it is today, particularly for large enterprises.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I actually would like to split that question into two when it comes to the large enterprise. Noopur just addressed what you do for the enterprise itself and all of its systems, et cetera, and applications that the employees have to deal with when they're in a remote situation. But at the same time, that same enterprise CIO and that whole department has to deal with how do you secure in this new environment the remote areas that commerce occurs, whether it's a brick and mortar branch location or it's some e-commerce and digital application. And I think that is where there's some focus that coincides exactly with the techniques that are being used now on securing remote workers for zero trust over the enterprise itself.
Noopur, explain the notion of perimeter-less enterprises. Why is it so important for them to adopt a zero trust cybersecurity approach? Explain what that means.
Yeah, and Glenn just used that term, and we used to be able to count on trusted networks, right? And there actually used to be a perimeter, an edge, where the trusted networks connected to the untrusted networks. And we would put all kinds of security gear on that edge and we would kind of control access through that. What's happened now, because of the rise in public cloud, because of software as a service, more and more applications, most of us today can spend an entire day working from a remote location or a remote office, like Glenn talked about. And we never actually log into our corporate network. We use applications over the internet, untrusted network. So zero trust is about acknowledging the fact that you cannot trust the network anymore. And in that situation, when you can't trust the network anymore, what do you do? And what you do is that your controls shift to people and their identity and the devices that they use. So it's a real shift from the network to people, their identities, and to their devices.
Glenn, anything to add there?
Well, yeah, I'll extend that actually. The same exact approach has been taken and is continuing to accelerate when it comes to, as I mentioned earlier, the areas that commerce occurs. So back in the day, you used to be able to have a branch location that you could trust because everything was on a private network and the data from that particular location, point of sales, commerce, et cetera, would not traverse a public network. Well, that's changed over time for mostly economic reasons. And now we've seen a big acceleration in that. So the whole concept of cloud-based applications for e-commerce, if you will, at the branch locations requires the same exact zero trust approach that you see with, let's say, workers of any enterprise trying to access their own applications and systems to do their work.
Sounds like a big risk, but also an opportunity for businesses out there. Glenn, what's Comcast Business's role in enterprise security, and how are security and connectivity adjacent these days?
So yeah, let me sort of explain a little bit where we play. We being Comcast Business, but really any service provider that is worthy of this type of activity. And when you do that, you have to segment what's happening now in, at least what I've been seeing for the last 3 to 4 years, and again accelerated during this pandemic, is the IT organizations of these large enterprises are now overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed, and they're not network savvy folks in general. So what they're pushing off to the service providers like Comcast Business is, hey, provide me a network as a service. I don't care about the technology. It has to be high bandwidth, high reliability, which drives you to internet-based transport with diversity at, let's say, a branch location, and then secure that layer for me. And by the way, I have some applications that still have to run legacy VPN into my data center from those remote locations, but I'm adding new back office applications or point of sales applications that are web-based, that are cloud-based, and I need you to implement that layer of security that is a cloud gateway security. So that lends itself to what I was calling before the secure access service edge type of approach. So that's where Comcast Business plays. We, like any other good service provider, will bring the transport, the wide area network management, and then the security layer on top of that to secure the network, not necessarily the applications themselves, but the data and anything that's traversing that network.
Sounds like a comprehensive solution there. And over to you, Noopur, now. What should enterprises be considering when rethinking their cybersecurity frameworks? It's not just an issue now, but also in the future. How should they be planning for this?
Yeah, really good question. And we kind of plan for our own security with what we call our North Stars. And these are things that we see will take us, several years to get there. But it's kind of the future, and how do you get to the future? So one of those we've talked about quite a bit, the whole concept of zero trust, the SASE, the secure access security edge. How do we position a large enterprise to get there? And that's, by the way, not an easy journey, right? That doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, you have to plan for it and execute it and then get there. So that's one. The second area that we also focus on, and in everything we do, in every product we build for our business customers, for our residential customers, is what we call build security in. We really want to make sure that our products and our services are secure from the day that we turn them on and they're starting to be consumed. So that's the second. Zero trust first, build security in second. And then the third big shift that we're seeing is the shift that we're seeing everywhere else, and that's also happening in security, which is the use of data. So how do we get data from all of the security sensors that are deployed, on endpoints, applications, in the cloud, and the network? How do we get that data converged? And then how do we use data science and machine learning to really interpret and get advanced warning of upcoming events? So those are the three tenets: big data, zero trust, and building security in.
Got it. And Glenn, in the last minute that we have here, what's at stake for enterprises? What do they risk by not giving full attention and the proper resources to this issue?
Well, they actually are risking their entire business, whether it's their own internal trade secrets or whether it's the ability to provide cloud services, which is what they're building their back of house on, to their customers, and then build applications that are secure on top of that, because that's where their commerce is coming from. The amount of sales that's being driven, it doesn't matter what commercial vertical you're talking about, on the digital side of transactions has increased by an order of magnitude the last 2 years. And that's where the game is, and that's where the security has to be, because it's all cloud-based, and hence the topic that we've just discussed here today.
Everything is in the cloud, and with remote workforces being what they are, this is an issue that is certainly here to stay. That is all the time we have. Thank you to both of you, Glenn and Noopur, for your time today.